Hello again for another standard deck tech video. As I remembered, I introduced this deck archetype and strategy back when I think that was in Kamigawa and Dynasty Standard, wherein after the card Greasefang Akiba Boss was previewed, there was a deck that came up from the Pioneer format with the utility of Greasefang and some other good vehicle cards in that covered under that format. And so we look again after this standard rotation as to what will be the deck, and it would still become a viable deck strategy with this version. And I got to see that we're able to check on a deck that has a finish. This is from a top 8 finish in his Champions Cup store qualifying at Hariruya in Japan. It made into the top 8, but sadly it won, but basically we will still appreciate as to what this innovative version of the Greasefang strategy that we look upon in standard. So when we look at the creature choices, we see here we have some Hotshot mechanics, Commando, Reminiscing format, and Greasefang. Let's review again what Greasefang does. It has its ability that it triggers that beginning of combat on your turn. You may return target vehicle card from graveyard to the battlefield. It has haste and return it to your hand at the beginning of your next end step. So basically Greasefang can basically read out most of these vehicles that was added in this list. Along that is also a 3 to cast 4/3 with a decent mana cost and also a decent power and toughness. Now to support these cards, we have this creature lineup, of course. Hotshot mechanic is a 1-drop 2/1 that can basically crew or a pilot of its ability, crew vehicles as though its power were 2 or greater, and 2 copies of it. Also, we have Commando with I think this is 3 copies. It is just basically utility creature with flash, 2 to cast 3/1, but pay 1 to sacrifice it. You can destroy target artifact or enchantment. So it is an enchant effect on the body, but usually crew most of your vehicles because of its 3 toughness on the setup. Now we also have Reminiscing format. So the purpose here is that you can only have a 2-drop 2/1, but when it enters the battlefield, you connives. By minimum knives, you will draw a card and discard a card. Then if you've discarded an unload card, you may put a counter on it, on this creature, and in format it becomes a 3/2 in the process. And with this given scenario, this is a way for you to discard all of your target vehicles that you want to be revived later on the next turn by Greasefang on your turn 3. So for your other creatures that was added in the list is the new card from Dominaria United. This is Sword Red Apocalypse. Nothing to really describe here because as you draw a card, you gain 2 life. Whenever opponent draws a card, deals 2 life. It also benefits you when you go with Connive's effects, wherein when you draw a card, you get an extra 2 life trigger with Shield Red, and also Shield Red can become a very good way to pilot any vehicle or just attacking for damage if needed. For the lineup of the vehicles, let us check. We have 3 or basically 10 overall. So we first check out the Surge Hacker mech. So this Surge Hacker mech is a 4 to cast 5/5 menace. It has a crew 4 that when it enters the battlefield, it deals damage equal to twice the number of vehicles you control to target creature or planeswalker upon control. So it's not only a 5/5 menace in its disposal that can attack, but it can basically clear out a potential blocker or any planeswalker threat that opponent may have that is basing on the damage that is equal to twice or times 2 the number of vehicles you control. So if you control 1, you get to deal 2 damage. If you control 2, 4, and then so on and so forth. So any total number of vehicles times 2. So we have 4 copies of this. It is then supported by the most popular vehicle probably in the format nowadays. It is Regular Bunkbuster. It's a Cardo effect that can basically steal, going to crew for 4/4 attack. And if at the same time if you go with the late game bonus, you can just draw a card up until you get this one online with having its pilot, a colorless pilot 1/1 and a treasure token. Now with support with the Reckoner Buster, we also have Mokotai's Reaper. It is a 2 to cast 4/3 vehicle with crew 2. It's a black mana cost on it, and can be considered as a black artifact creature. Whenever it attacks, you may sacrifice another artifact creature. If you do, put a counter Mokotai's Reaper against menace until end of turn. Not really on a good side, but the bonus pump effect would mean in certain situations wherein you would need to do extra damage on your opponent, maybe for an alpha strike if needed. But for this current setup, we just have a basic 2 to cast 4/3 creature, wherein you can just basically crew for turn 3 or turn 4 later on to just do its attacks. So we have 10 vehicles in total, along with just support cards with the cut downs, spot removals, Rattle on the Union. This is an exile effect. Exile 200 card from graveyard, and then you will create a 2/2 zombie with decay. So this decay can then be used to pilot these vehicles. I think these are just good pilot overall. And can stay away 1 copy. Return target creature card with mana value or less from your graveyard to the battlefield. Then it has this effect that will the die exile instead. So basically you can just steal, get Greasefang from your graveyard and do the triggers on its own with this card. So but not really necessary in the setup, so we'll just have only 1 copy. 1 copy of the Right of Oblivion. This is just a solid exile effect of exiling target non-land permanent as a cost of sacrificing a non-land permanent with the flashback, of course. So 2 effects in just 1 card. 2 copies of Soul Transfer. This is just also a recurring effect, but in bonus you can still exile another target creature or Planeswalker if needed, but you can do with the setup of going through 2 of these, do a double copy, but in this lineup I'm not pretty sure if we can do that because of the mostly you rely on artifacts and no sign of enchantments in the main deck. So last but not the least are the deck effects. We have Invoke Despairs, 2 copies, and Liliana of the Veil, two more copies. So overall, this is more of the black-white mid-range control, up to the control deck that can combo off with the Greasefang in the setup. We check with the lands. Basically, it goes with the black-white cards, Skype's Coilos, Shard Sanctums, and the new card that supports not probably a new card, but the card from Kamigawa and Industry supports the vehicles. This is a paid 3 tap mech hanger. Target vehicle with an artifact creature until end turn. In cases that you won't need to have no creatures to pilot those, you can just use mech hanger to activate your creatures. Your vehicles into artifact creatures that can basically attack for it. So that's the lineup with just Ganju, wrapping up with Ganju and Takinuma for the sideboard, for the utility cards for channel effects. Lastly, we need to check some of the sideboard cards. So additional cut downs for aggro, place at duress, of course, for EZ controls and other mid-range decks. 2 more Hotshot mechanics, maybe for a right combination in the main deck. Qatar Commando for another disenchant source. Destroy Evil, of course, the white's most popular spot removal now in the metagame. Additional 2 copies of Infernal Grasp, solid spot removal also with just a cost of 2 life. 2 copies of Depopulate if needed for setups like tokens or more of aggro matchups, and going with the Recurrent Bombasser also to go with the mid-range to control matchups. So overall, I think this is still a potential deck. I might try to pilot this one if ever I would be able to complete this in our MTG Arena account. Stay tuned for that, so we can see how the actual gameplay of this will happen. In once just maybe an unpopular deck choice in this sort of a metagame value for the current standard. So if you have questions or maybe comments on this build, feel free to comment down in this box below. And if you like this video, just like and subscribe on the lower right portion of your page. You can see here that we had previously introduced some of the metagame decks or deck text in the format for Dominaria United Standard, and also make sure that we can be notified first by turning on the notification bell on that setup. So that's about it for checking this video. Thank you for watching again, and until the next time, Deck Tech for Dominaria United. See ya.